George Best in the Maestro series tomorrow afternoon, BBC2 at 1:40. One World Cup result, Albania 1, Sweden 2. That's in England's group, of course. That result put Sweden top of Group 2, and the next match in this group, Albania versus England, on March the 8th. Well, here at Twickenham this afternoon, quite a bit of talent fulfilled as England recorded their first victory over Australia in 6 years. From Twickenham, goodbye.
World's biggest hooker, 18 stones and mobile, 36 times capped. Lawton on Australia's throw on the England line. Down from Cutler, Far Jones, liner. Through from Cook, Gervin in the middle, half through, Leeds is there for the try. Paul Ackford, Dean Richards, Jeff Probyn, Andy Robinson, Brian Moore, Wade Dooley. All the pack getting in on the act, but still they have it again. Rob Andrew, Underwood this time. Webb, it's intercepted by Campese, who else? And no one will stop him. Rob Andrew will try and narrow the angle, but it's Campese on the breakaway. We've seen it before, we saw it at Sale on this tour. That's international try number 27. With Australia still not the greatest strength centre field. England come at them now. Halliday, Carling, pincer tackle. Ackford, Andrew. Underwood, is he clear? Underwood it is. Does he make it to the corner? They'll await the touch judge's decision. The try is given. "17 minutes remain. No knock on. Harriman spins it to Richards. Good driving run by Richards. Gets the pass in well to Edgerton. Moore. Mobile England pack. No! Underwood again. Underwood for the corner. Yes! No doubt. Australia still going. They're not beaten yet. Far Jones. Andrew leads with Grant outside. Grant against Underwood. Grant goes and gets. James Grant to keep hopes alive. He'll put it down under the posts. And that surely will make it a conversion and 6 points in the dying moments of this match. Joey Morris to Carling. England in possession again. Carling away. Great run. Surely it's on now for Halliday to wrap it up. Simon Halliday. His first try for England seals victory over Australia for sure.
This week's Roadshow has suffered an unscheduled stop. We are in a place where there are ghouls and ghosts and strange goings-on, and a man who drinks blood and has a rotten dental problem. But anyway, apart from that, we'll really enjoy ourselves. We'll have pub games, we'll have the clown court, and we're going to prosecute some of our furry friends as well. And all sorts of the other things going on. I'll look for the top souvenirs and one... Oh, what's that?
Find out in the Noel Edmonds Saturday Roadshow, tonight at 6 on BBC1.
In 15 minutes, medical problems difficult to face up to with the Flying Doctors. Now at 5:05 on BBC1, the news with Moira Stuart.
After the attempted coup on the Maldives, 2 hostages are reported shot dead on board a ship seized by the fleeing mercenaries. Dukakis narrows the gap on Bush the favourite, but a surge in support may be too late. And Spanish police ask for British help to combat unruly holidaymakers. 2 of the hostages held by mercenaries on a boat in the Indian Ocean have been reported shot dead. The mercenaries were fleeing the Maldive Islands after an attempted coup failed earlier this week. They hijacked a cargo boat, taking with them 27 hostages. About 10 of them are foreigners, 2 of them are now known to be Swiss. In a ship-to-shore call, the captain of the boat, the Progress Light, said that 2 hostages had been shot and the mercenaries had wired up the ship with explosives. He said they threatened to blow it up if Indian Navy boats surrounding it attacked.
Most of the mercenaries who tried to seize control of the Maldives scattered and fled as Indian troops swept through the islands. About a dozen were captured and are now in custody. But one group took about 30 people hostage in the capital, Malé, and forced them to board a hijacked cargo ship, which then headed towards Sri Lanka. Indian gunboats have been surrounding the ship since last night, and throughout the day there have been conflicting reports about the siege. At one point, the mercenaries were said to have been overpowered, but then came the news that 2 of the hostages had been shot dead. Only moments before, President Abdul Gayoom, speaking on the telephone from Malé, had warned that the situation was extremely delicate.
In the first place, we want to ensure the safety of the hostages, and we wouldn't want to do anything that might endanger their lives. As you know, some boats of the Indian fleet, at our request, are continuing their surveillance over the ship so that we could coordinate our action in a way that would not endanger the lives of the hostages and at the same time apprehend those mercenaries.
The president insisted that the government was now in complete control throughout the islands. But after these killings, the operation to capture the mercenaries at sea has clearly taken on a new and pressing urgency.
With only 3 days to go before the American people choose their next president, a new opinion poll shows that Michael Dukakis is catching up. But George Bush still has a commanding lead. Both candidates are concentrating their campaigns in the key states that could decide the election's outcome.
Dukakis is campaigning in both darkness and daylight, counting the hours to the vote and using them.
Something's happening out there. You can feel it and taste it.
All they could taste in Kentucky was the rain, but elsewhere the opinion polls pointed to a late but small surge in Dukakis' favor. By the time he reached Chicago, he was playing to a happier tune.
Chicago is my kind of town.
For his part, George Bush still looked happier, visiting states Dukakis had just left, anxious to have the last word. This last word supplied by a Boston newspaper commenting on Dukakis' fiscal policies.
What a mess!
While Bush showed off headlines that suited him, he was showing signs of fresh exhaustion, even getting wrong the date of the election.
And we've got to keep this fighting spirit going right down till November 4th.
And he'll need to go 4 days beyond that. For the first time, there are jitters in the Bush camp, not about winning, but about the size of their victory.
5 Britons have appeared in court in Spain after a Moroccan man was stabbed to death during a fight in a bar. The incident happened on the holiday island of Ibiza in the main town of San Antonio. The 5 men all live on the island where they worked as bouncers in the bar where the killing took place. The Home Secretary, Douglas Hurd, is considering a request from the Spanish authorities for British policemen to be sent to the tourist resorts to help deal with troublesome holidaymakers.
The problem of drunken British holidaymakers in Spain is considered to be on the increase. This year, the number of Britons arrested for crimes and hooliganism rose sharply. Now, the Spanish authorities have asked the Home Secretary for a small number of British officers to be made available to provide advice and assistance in dealing with the problem. Mr. Hurd is said to be considering the request sympathetically, but a spokesman for the Police Federation here has described the idea as absurd, pointing out that the police are already overstretched during the summer in Britain without having to send officers abroad. Conservative backbencher Teddy Taylor has also condemned the idea. He said introducing British officers in purely an advisory role without the right of arrest was crazy. But Mr. Hurd does have the support of the chairman of an influential House of Commons Select Committee.
The job of a British police officer is essentially to prevent crimes and offences, not to make arrests, and to provide a liaison arrangement with the Spanish police to help them cope with and understand young British people in particular, to have the ability to contact the police service back home in the UK would be a valuable advantage.
Any officers sent to Spain would be unlikely to wear their uniforms. They would probably be asked to mediate between the Spanish police and groups of British holidaymakers.
In South Korea, riot police have clashed with demonstrators at a series of mass protests across the country. The demonstrators were calling for the arrest of the former president, Chun Doo-hwan. In the capital, Seoul, fighting broke out when police stopped 10,000 protesters marching on Mr. Chun's house. Police riot squads drove the demonstrators into the side streets, but the demonstrators regrouped and attacked the police with stones and firebombs. It was the worst violence in the city for more than a year. More violence in the North Indian state of Punjab has left 7 people dead. The police say Sikh extremists fighting for an independent homeland have killed more than 50 people in 2 days of shootings and bomb explosions. An international assembly of sports federations has failed to draw up a charter to tackle drug abuse. Along with other scandals, the Ben Johnson affair at this year's Seoul Olympics put pressure on the sports federations to accept new guidelines across the board. But at the meeting in Switzerland, objections were raised and it was finally decided to consider another set of guidelines next year. England have won their first Rugby Union International of the current season. Rory Underwood scored 2 tries as they beat the Australian tourists by 28 points to 19. In football, Norwich increased their lead at the top of the First Division. Goals from Andy Linnigan and Malcolm Allen gave them a 2-0 win against Wimbledon. 2 companies involved in a long-running dispute over an unpaid bill went to war to resolve the problem, and both managed to get their just desserts. The companies from Leicester and Dorset decided that a custard pie fight would resolve the squabble for the £354. Even the referee, a vicar from Northamptonshire, did not escape. But the sweetener for him was the unpaid bills were collected and handed over to his church restoration fund. That's all for now. The main news on BBC1 tonight is at 9:15.
Good evening to you. Well, it's bonfire night, of course, and with the extra smoke in the atmosphere, that means that fog will form more readily. Already foggy in the West Midlands, hence the abandonment of the match over at Port Vale during the afternoon. We've also got co-channel interference, and both these effects caused by the high pressure here. That's going to move out of the way in the next couple of days as things turn rather more unsettled coming off the Atlantic. Already then very misty in the southwest here and through the Midlands. The odd patch of drizzly rain up through Wales and some showers up in northern parts of Scotland too. But as far as the night's concerned, well, it's clear skies winning the battle in many central and eastern parts. Fog forming quite readily, so quite dense patches later in the night, particularly over England, I fancy. More persistent rain probably getting into the Northern Isles as well later on tonight. Temperatures dependent upon the cloud cover, actually. The further east you are, the more likely you are to see a frost, but out in the southwest here with the cloud, temperatures staying several degrees above freezing. Tomorrow then a grey and misty start, some fog to clear away. Out in the west it'll stay fairly cloudy for much of the day, but further east, central and eastern parts, you will have some watery sunshine. And that's it from me.
Light up the evening BBC1 style this Saturday. At 6 o'clock, it's Noel Edmonds.
This week on the Roadshow, an unscheduled stop means that we are here in this Transylvanian palace with shocks and frights galore! Ah!
There are no frights, only Bob Monkhouse at 6:45 as he invites all to join him in Bob's Full House. And at 7:20, Renee puts up Little Resistance.
Oh, my God.
At 7:45, Hearts of Gold is out on the beat.
Stop. I'm Esther Ransom, we're filming. You're wonderful.
In All Creatures Great and Small at 8:25, there's an addition to the practice.
A new student coming for a couple of weeks. Oh, fine. Some gormless Herbert galumping about, having to be steered between the cowpats, eh?
At 9:30 in the film Apology for Murder, a killer's taped confession could be fatal. It's a sparkling lineup for Guy Fawkes Night on BBC1.
Now on One, the latest Midlands news and sport with Steve Lee.
Good evening. First, tonight's Midlands news. The chairman of the West Midlands Passenger Transport Authority has claimed the government may force the abolition of free travel for pensioners in the region. Philip Bateman says he's been told to save £9 million from the rate support grant, and he believes the government wants him to look at changes in pensioners' free bus and rail fares. Police in Birmingham have issued a bonfire night warning about a highly dangerous mortar-type firework which was stolen from a park in Moseley, where a firework display is being held tonight. The thieves left behind the mortar's steel launcher, and police say if the firework is ignited without it, it'll explode and break into fragments. They've warned the firework has a blast radius of 200 yards. Right, today's soccer now, starting with Division 1 results. Coventry 1, West Ham 1, Manchester United 1, Aston Villa 1, Tottenham 1, Derby 3. First port of call today, Highfield Road, where Coventry City had to battle for a point against West Ham. Our reporter, Ian Bolton of Radio WM.
A determined second-half fight back by Coventry, and a goal by substitute Keith Thompson 8 minutes from the end saw them take a share of the points. That after the Walsall striker David Kelly had given the visitors the lead after half an hour. And then only some splendid saves by the West Ham keeper Alan McKnight in the second half kept out a determined Sky Blues performance. He, though, could do nothing about Thompson's equaliser, and Coventry will reflect on the match, thinking they had enough chances to have taken all 3 points.
Derby's £1 million striker Dean Saunders was on the score sheet again as the Rams won at Tottenham, reporting Colin Gibson of Radio Derby.
2 goals from Ted McMinn and 1 from Dean Saunders gave Derby County their first away win of the season, and in doing so pushed Spurs into deeper trouble at the foot of the First Division. It was Tottenham who took the lead, Paul Stewart with his first goal for the club in 6 minutes. Derby then equalised against the run of play, McMinn scoring from an acute angle for his first of the season. McMinn then gave the Rams the lead, and Dean Saunders made sure of the points with his second goal in his second game, following his £1 million move from Oxford.
Aston Villa made it 6 games without defeat with a 1-1 draw at Manchester United. The home side had former Villa man Colin Gibson carried off. Then they went ahead through Steve Bruce, but Gordon Cowns equalised with his first goal since rejoining Villa. Right, Division 2 now, Birmingham 0, Portsmouth 0, Brighton 3, Shrewsbury 1, Leicester 0, Manchester City 0, Oldham 3, Walsall 0, Sunderland 1, Stoke 1, West Brom 3, Oxford 2. Leicester City were hoping to improve their inconsistent form against Manchester City at Filbert Street. Reporting, Tony Rowe.
A missed penalty from Gary McAllister in the dying seconds of the first half cost Leicester all 3 points. He fired the ball in low, but it struck Dibble on the legs and bounced clear. Leicester had the better chances in a scrappy game. Saves from Dibble denied them 3 times. A powerful Walsh header bounced off a defender, and Reid and Mocklin both saw shots go inches wide. It was Leicester's biggest league crowd of the season. The final score, Leicester City 0, Manchester City 0.
Elsewhere in the second division, Brian Talbot maintained his unbeaten record as manager of West Brom with a 5th straight win, despite trailing twice to Oxford. Colin Anderson cancelled out Foyle's opener midway through the first half. Robert Hopkins grabbed another equaliser after Simpson had restored Oxford's lead. Albion's late winner came from Goodman. Graham Shaw put improving Stoke ahead after just 7 minutes, but they had to settle for a point as Doyle equalised in the second half. Walsall never recovered from being 3 goals down inside half an hour at Oldham, while Brighton's 3-1 win ended Shrewsbury's 4-match unbeaten run. Right, on to Division 3 now. Bury 1, Notts County 1. The Port Vale Aldershot game was abandoned due to fog. Preston 2, Mansfield 0. Wigan 1, Northampton 3. Wolves 3, Southend 0. Wolves made it 5 straight wins to maintain their interest at the top. Floyd Street put them ahead early on, with Downing adding his first of the season soon after. Steve Ball wrapped things up with his 11th goal of the season late on. Northampton ended the run of 7 successive defeats thanks to goals from Berry, Adcock and Paul Colping. Right, on to Division 4 now. Hereford 0, Wrexham 0, Rotherham 2, Lincoln 0. Vauxhall Conference today, Cheltenham 1, Barnet 2, Kidderminster 1, Sutton 0, Stafford 3, Welling 0, Telford 1, Macclesfield 3. The club rugby, or Pilkington Cup rugby I should say, the results today, Bedford 16, Nuneaton 0, Coventry 7, Plymouth 12,